Hey guys, this is Justin at The Survivor Review, and today we're talking about episode 3 of season 3 of Ash vs. Evil Dead, titled Already Dead. Another awesome episode that's just a ton of fun, has a lot of great moments and a couple surprises along the way. Like how most episodes end with the big Deadite fight scene, this one begins with that actually, which is kind of surprising, because it opens up on Candy, Brandy's mom's funeral. And first off, I love the suit that Ash has had. Just that, like, cheesy looking blue suit. It was a yellow tie. Like, it just perfectly fits Ash. And so he's there, and there's kind of like a nice moment at the beginning where he's talking to Brandy, and she's telling him that she's going to move out and move in with her guidance counselor. And even though, like, she kind of wants to just get away from Ash, it's kind of like a nice moment. You could tell that she's still trying to give him a chance, actually. Like, she might want to give him a chance. Which totally changes after the opening scene, because Ash goes to pay his respects to Candy. Of course, she turns into a Deadite, and there's this fun fight scene inside the casket, actually, which is just awesome. That's just a really unique, like, setting, something we've never really seen before. So there's a fun fight scene in there, and of course, Ash, defeats her, but he gets stuck inside the casket. Cut to the actual funeral, and Brandy goes up to say some words, and oh my god, when that scene started, I was like, oh god, oh man, oh, this is gonna happen, it's gonna be so awkward, oh god. And we start to see little bumps in the casket, and all of a sudden it bursts open and Ash pops up. And this is just the brilliance of Bruce Campbell's acting, is just that he is hilarious in this scene. It's so awkward, but so funny. Like, I was kind of uncomfortable for the build-up, like, oh, it's gonna be so awkward, I don't want that to happen to Brandy, ugh. But then when he popped up, I couldn't stop laughing. That was just such a great moment where you kind of like, oh, sorry folks, little problem here, he picks up the severed head, goes and puts it back in the casket and stuff like that. And then I love when he sits down, and he has Brandy stay up there and she goes, keep going, you're doing fine, honey. I love that opening scene. And then after that, Ash comes face to face with Ruby as the guidance counselor and finds out that, Ruby's here, she's behind it all. And the whole thing of this episode is just Ash pushing Brandy further and further away. Like, she already, didn't want to be near him. But like I said at the beginning, was kind of, coming to terms with it a little bit, but still didn't want to be with him. This episode just pushes her completely out of the door, basically. And of course, Brandy comes in as he's talking with Ruby, and he goes on his whole spiel about she's the bad guy, she's the one that caused your mom and your friend to turn into a Deadite and all that stuff, and of course Brandy's now pissed at him. So Brandy along with Ruby leaves, and Pablo, Kelly, and Dalton come in. Ash tells them that, Ruby's back and, we have to stop her, but they're like, oh, we can't because we don't have the Kandarian dagger, that's the only way to kill the Dark One. And then all of a sudden Pablo has another one of his visions of, like, the naked girl with the mask. And she tells him that, you need the Kandarian dagger, and it's probably where you guys left it. Essentially where the cabin used to be. And that was a really cool sequence. I liked, the visuals of it. This episode overall is very visually good. There's a lot of great atmospheric moments in it. There's some really interesting scenes in that vision that Pablo has, including, those people in there getting their, throats slashed by the Kandarian dagger and stuff like that. It was, really intriguing. It was really cool. I mean, there were a couple clunky lines in here. There's a lot of kind of clunky lines, I feel like, regarding Pablo and stuff. That, I don't know, I just feel like didn't really land too well. But those moments aside, I like that scene a lot. So they go their separate way. Ash goes to try to convince Brandy to stay, and Pablo, Kelly, and Dalton go to find the dagger, basically. And then you got that whole scene, which I thought was a really cool scene. Like, I do like the line that Kelly had, where it's just like, the evil just keeps bringing us back to the cabin, even when it's gone. And I like that. I thought that was really cool. I liked the setting of them being, where the cabin used to be, but now there's no cabin. I thought that was creepy. And they start digging, and they start finding, stuff from the cabin, like, of course, the deer head and the clock and everything. And then they find the dagger. And, of course, the evil finds them, and you have the evil force going after them. And I really liked the shots. It was kind of like a wide shot of the forest, and you see the trees just kind of falling over, and you hear the tree branches cracking as the forest is getting closer to them. I like that moment a lot, and it chases after them, and it gets Dalton, and basically impales him against a tree, and he's stabbed and he's about to die. But when Kelly goes over to him, he says that Pablo did this. That it was actually Pablo that impaled him and everything, which I can't tell if that's exactly, the Deadite just tricking Kelly, or if that's actually what's happening, because like I wouldn't be surprised since Pablo seems to be acting a little off. He seems to be acting kind of funny. So it's the thing. It's like I don't know if it really is, if that really is what happened, or if that's just the Deadites messing with Kelly. I don't know yet. We'll have to find out. And of course, he turns into a Deadite, and all of a sudden Pablo just comes in and slams into him with the truck, which I thought was great. And he was like, yeah, never mess with the ghost beater. So like, oh, okay, so he is normal? But then they make it kind of mysterious because after that happens, Kelly goes over to find Pablo and Dalton, and neither of them are there. So still kind of mysterious on what exactly is going on with Pablo, if he's, good or not, if he's turning evil. But, we don't know yet. We'll have to see. But I like that whole sequence in the woods where the cabin used to be. It's good to know that we're not going to be returning to the cabin again this season and doing the same thing that the last 2 seasons did, because they do return to the cabin in this episode, and they reveal that, there is no cabin. And I like how we know we're not going to be getting another kind of like, let's go back to the cabin type of storyline at the end of the season, because we already had our return to the cabin episode, this episode, which I thought was a fun, different take on it, different twist that they're going back to where the cabin used to be. So then we cut to Ruby walking through the cemetery, which was another great atmospheric moment. I love the fog and everything. I love the way it looked. And she walks over to a tombstone and, opens up the book, cuts her hand, and she's basically resurrecting whoever that grave is. Which at first I was like, okay, we've seen that kind of stuff before. But then they do it in kind of a unique way where she opens up this little box and pulls out this bug and then cuts open her hand and the blood drips onto that bug and the bug flies off. And I'm like, okay, that's different. That's weird. That's unique. I like that they did that. So it's a lot different than just her cutting open her hand and saying a spell and he's back. Yay. It was a little slightly different. I thought that was cool. I like that. And then to cut to the scene after that, which I think is the best scene in the entire episode, is this kind of montage scene where Brandy is back at Ash's house and she's gathering all her stuff, getting ready to leave, but she's kind of just taking her time, messing around, wearing Ash's vest from his job and stuff, and listening to music. And you see that person who Ruby resurrected going into the house, and I love the visual. I love the shot of the door opening, and they're standing in the doorway. Like I thought that was really cool. And then you see that person walking up the steps, going into the shower, starting to take a shower, and you see him in the shower, and the water is like washing all the dirt and even like kind of the bones like off, it kind of turned into like regular skin. Which I thought that was really cool. Like I loved that whole scene. It was, like I said, the highlight of the episode. Really visually good, just really awesome. Then we find out who that person is, and it's Brock. We brought Brock back. I love it. I love that character, and I thought we didn't get enough of him in season 2. Like, they killed him off way too early on. Like, he was dead in the 3rd episode at the end. I was like, oh, okay. So I like they were getting more of Brock. And of course, he's sitting there with Brandy, and Brandy's happy and smiling for once, and, having a good time. And Ash comes in and is just like, he's dead. and of course, the one time Brandy's happy, Ash has to ruin it. So that turns into a big thing. I like that they're watching Ash's commercial from the 1st episode and just laughing at how terrible it is. Like, I thought that was great. And that leads into a big confrontation fight scene between Brock and Ash. It was really entertaining. It just involves Brandy getting hit. Like, she gets hit with the can and gets knocked out. And then the final moment, just to make things even worse. Like, just when you think it couldn't get any worse with the Brandy situation. Ash gets his chainsaw on, impales Brock with the chainsaw, blood spurting everywhere, and the blood is flying right into Kelly's face. When that happened, I was like, oh god, she's just being soaked with blood, like, soaked, and he's dead, and Ash is like, oh, sees her there, and she's like, oh, well, I mean, at least I could explain this, and then she storms out, and that's how the episode ends. So, great ending. Overall, I really like this episode. I love that Brock is back. I was worried when, after Ash killed him, that was it, that was his whole role, but then I, saw the commercial for next week's episode, which I didn't mean to. I don't want to watch those, since last week's preview revealed that Brock was coming back in this episode, and if I didn't know that, that would have been a great surprise. But that preview for next week revealed that Brock will be in it more, so that's great. Great that he's coming back in. It's more than just a 1-episode cameo, because that's what really worried me when he popped up in this episode. Because I heard that Louis Majors was coming back on the show, But when I saw that it was Ruby resurrecting him, I'm like, oh, this is going to be like a one-off thing where he comes back and then Ash kills him and then we move on, right? But apparently he's going to be in it a little bit more, and that I'm excited for. I love that. He's still funny as always and just great. I love Lee Majors in this show. And then I like that scene with Kelly, Dalton, and Pablo, especially because, like, I don't know what's going on exactly with Dalton. Like, I saw him in the preview for next week, so I know he's back. And I kind of figured that. I'm like, there's no way they would just kill him off in the 3rd episode, especially because they're calling him like a regular on the season. Like, even last season with the episodes that Lee Majors was in, he was still a guest star, whereas the actor playing Dalton is a main, like, major lead in the show. So I knew he wasn't going to die, but I don't know what they're going to do with him now. Like, I feel like they're going to do a bit more with him. But there's other stuff I like about this episode. I like all the stuff with Brandy. Like, she is actually, like, a main focal point of this episode. Because, like, I mentioned in my review of the first episode that, like, I thought her acting was kind of off, and I don't know, I wasn't too into it. And then in episode 2, she was kind of barely in it, so there really isn't a whole lot to talk about. But in this one, she's more in the forefront, and I thought she was really good. I feel like her acting has really improved. Like, she was doing really good with the emotional scenes at the beginning at her mom's funeral. Stuff like that, I thought she handled that very well. So I like her, and I'm kind of interested to see where they're going to go with the daughter storyline after this episode. It just seems like things are going to get a lot crazier and a lot more complicated, because now it's getting a lot harder to convince Brandy that Ash is a good guy after this episode, where everything just keeps getting worse and worse. It just keeps escalating. And like I said, I like the visual style of this episode. There's some good horror elements in it, some good horror imagery. Like I said, I love the whole montage with Brock coming to the house. Thought that was great. Yeah, just all made for a very entertaining episode. I can't wait to see where the story goes from here. So yeah, it's episode 3 of season 3 of Ash vs. Evil Dead. And that's about it for now. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.